Hello and welcome everybody to according to Andrew number 79. Is deflation on the way? And what goes up must come down. So I kind of want to talk about this because I was listening to Timcast show, and they were talking about how the price of food and wood and all this other stuff has gone up in price a lot, and that's absolutely true. And they're like, oh, all this inflation is going in, and they were talking about 2008, and that I think that's a good point that they kind of bring up that 2008 is everything was going through the roof and then it collapsed, and so I kind of want to talk about like why that is and what's going on with all that, and then also maybe tie that into why I think Bitcoin really isn't money, and why gold and silver, despite the fact that they historically have been money and they, in a sense, will probably become money again. I think they kind of fall in the same realm of Bitcoin right now. They're an asset. They're a way for you to hold your money, but I don't think that they, in their current form, they don't actually constitute as money, and that's for one simple reason. So let's define money real quick. So the way I'm going to define money here is it's something that can be used to pay your taxes, pay your debts, um, and that's basically it. I thought there was a third thing. Those are the two primary. So the two primary functions of money is that you can pay your taxes in it and that you can pay your debts with it. So um, that's why Bitcoin isn't money. That's why gold and silver isn't money. Its current in its current iteration, it has been money in the past. It has been used to pay your debts and pay taxes, but in its current iteration, it does not fill those two things. And I think that is something that people are overlooking when they're looking at this potential bubble that's coming, or not coming. We are in a bubble, and why it looks bad, or what's the term that I'm looking for? Things aren't gonna be good, and the reason that things are gonna deflate after they've kind of inflated like this is mainly because of the debt. So uh, more every single time somebody takes out debt, they create more money, and then that debt has to get paid back. And it's kind of like a game of musical chairs, where to keep the game going, um, they add new people to it, and then so basically, like you're playing musical chairs. They're about to end the thing, and everybody's got to find a seat. And the classic thing with musical chairs is there's always one less seat than the people playing. um, except for at this point, it's not about the kicker is with that of basically how it works is the more if you get someone else to join the game, the music continues on for like 5 seconds more, and then you get another person to join, it continues on for another 5 seconds more. But it's gotten to such a point that they've kept this game going longer and longer, and there's only one chair left, and there's like 50 million people playing this game of musical chairs. And the more people they keep adding to it, it's not adding 5 seconds of time anymore to the before everybody's got to find their seat. It's adding like half a second at this point, and then they're just trying to get another person in, another couple people in, and it's going from half a second down to like a quarter of a second, right? So it's just this clock that's eating away and ticking, 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 and eventually the whole thing's going to implode. Um, and that's something that I don't think people are factoring for, because they're like, oh, all these prices are going up. You need to get your assets out of the dollar because the dollar's a bad investment, all this stuff. And to be honest, that's not bad advice if you don't have debt, because then you just need to carry enough money. And most people work for a corporation that basically takes their taxes out already. If you do the system where you overpay, then you really don't have to worry about it. And even if you underpay, generally you're not paying too much in, depending on your situation. So, having a little bit of money to be able to pay in your taxes every year, that's not really a problem. The biggest thing that people need dollars for is to pay their debts. And with all this money printing and stuff like that, people are thinking, oh, that's the reason that there's been this surge in demand, which has spiked prices, and that's definitely a factor. I'm not saying that's not a factor, but another thing that's a factor that I think people aren't mentioning is everyone's like, you want to get out of dollars. Dollars don't mean anything, and so what people are doing is they're taking out loans so that they can get into dollars because they're like, oh, it's gonna hyperinflate, and then I can get those dollars back super cheap and pay off all this debt. Well, when you have an entire society thinking like that, you're driving up the prices artificially, and then eventually that game of musical chairs is gonna stop, and everybody's gonna need to uh, pay those bills back and pay those dollars back, and all of a sudden everyone's gonna realize that there's basically no money. And that's why I think they keep churning and printing all this money that's going on right now. They're like, print 6 trillion, and they print 6 trillion, then they're going to print like another 6 trillion. People are like, this is insane. But I mean, if they're taking that out as debt, isn't really solving an issue. But if they're basically xeroxing this stuff and saying like, we're just adding this to the pool of money or whatever, if that money gets sucked up and then goes into debt and is deleted basically from the economy, then it's not really a problem, and it's gonna all that printing, while it is kind of causing increases right now, will ultimately kind of sort itself out as that money eventually gets sucked into paying off debts and then removing itself from circulation. So I don't think that's as big of a problem as people make it out to be, though it is. You can't do it forever. Like, don't get me wrong. And there's definitely issues with it. There's like moral hazards and all this other problem with it. So what else is there? Uh, so yeah. So people are so I mean, house loans right now. I think I heard. So the 30-year mortgage is the classic thing. I think I heard that they're now offering 40-year mortgages. So that's a way that people that don't really have a lot of money or are already close to capped on their debt can all of a sudden be able to take out a loan to get to take out more debt and stuff like that. And that's really growing this bubble that we're gonna see collapse eventually. And one other thing that's going on is what is because people are saying move out of these assets, move out of dollars, move out of dollars, move out of dollars, and people are dumping their dollars as fast as possible for other like real assets, which is a good call. Nobody's really factoring in how much they're going to need to pay their debts, which I already kind of talked about. I'm sure margins are up. I know, and this is before the pandemic, so I don't even know what the debt ratios are right now. But student loans were over $1 trillion, business loans were over $1 trillion, house mortgages were over $1 trillion. The commercial real estate market was over $1 trillion of debt. By the way, all these. What else is over $1 trillion in debt? I think car loans was over $1 trillion in debt. Like, that is so much money. And then on top of all of this, and this is just like America's debt problem, right? And all that has to be paid in dollars. Well, on top of all that issue, every other country needs to pay all their debts in dollars. So eventually what's going to happen is people are going to be like, oh, Bitcoin's like 60 grand, or blah, blah. Eventually someone's going to say, hey, I need to sell this asset off so I can pay my debts. Or someone's going to have a margin call. This is kind of why in 1928, where you can kind of see this, where the margin calls kind of created this cascading effect. It's because somebody said, oh, you need to pay your debt or whatever. And then that lowered the price that made it so that other person can cover, and it spirals where you just kind of need more people in the game to be able to. You need someone tomorrow to be able to say that they're willing to pay the debts of the person that took on the debt yesterday, so that the game can keep continuing. The problem is eventually you run out of people, and eventually you run out of the amount of debt that they can take on, because the amount of debt is basically limited by their productive capacity, right? If you get paid like $1 million a year, let's say, and you take out enough. You take out basically the maximum amount of loans you could potentially take out to where that entire $1 million is going right into your debt, and then like whatever daily kind of things that you need, you can't take out any more loans. Like, first off, the banks won't give you any, probably well before that point, and then on top of that, there's no money for you to put into these loans anymore. So you're basically tapped out. You can no longer take on any more debt. Because you can't take on any more debt, you can't create any more new money. And because you can't create any new money, that's one less person that can keep this game of musical chairs going. And that's ultimately where it ends up all collapsing and stuff like that. What else is there? So yeah, so that's why like Bitcoin and stuff like that. I know people have been, it kind of collapsed and stuff like that because of some weirdness. But that's where I don't see Bitcoin as money and stuff like that, and it's more of an asset class than an actual monetary, because it doesn't, like, Bitcoin doesn't circulate as a currency. It doesn't exchange hands and is used as a medium of exchange. It doesn't do that. People buy it to hold it, um, in the hopes that its value will go up. That's the same with gold and silver. Um, and then the and then again, like I talked about earlier, it doesn't pay your debts. Uh, it doesn't pay taxes, so it's not used in that case. And then gold and silver is kind of similar. Now, the thing I like about gold and silver is, yes, it's technically not money right now, and maybe someday it will be. So you got that to look forward to potentially. But then on top of that, it's something that holds its value. So, um, a good example of this is, I know Owen talks about this a lot, where when you buy, when he buys like something like a cow or a blueberry bush or whatever, it doesn't matter how much, like, someone says that it's worth in dollars, because it has a tangible direct value to him right now. And gold and silver doesn't exactly fall into this, unless you have like silver, you have silverware or something like that. Like, it has a tangible physical value that you use it for, not just like bars and coins sitting somewhere. Um, so what was I gonna say? Oh, and there's some gold and silver right now. um, so it has a tangible value. It has, oh, so it has some real, and then it also holds its value. So basically, if I buy gold now at, I don't know, what is it, like 16K an ounce or something like that, like, however much purchasing power that gold has at its current value or whatever, um, it will still retain that purchasing power when I change it for dollars later on. So it doesn't matter if my 1600 becomes, there's deflation, and my 1600 becomes like $1,000, because it'll still be able to get me relatively about the same amount of goods and services as, and then same if it goes up. If it goes up to 20,000, it's still going to get me about the same goods and services. So that's where it's, the both gold and silver are very useful. Gold probably more so in its ability to just kind of maintain its purchasing ability. There is some variability in that, mainly because of what is it called? Oh, because of the growth of the economy, right? So your gold might be worth like $1,000 or something like that, but then like $1,000, as the economy grows and you get more advanced consumer goods and stuff like that, like iPhones and cars and planes and uh, houses, internet, computers, like all these various things. Like, when there's more options and things that your money can be spent on, then uh, you're well, then what you're exchanging back when you change the gold for the dollars might not get you more purchasing power. Though in reality, that's probably the reverse. It probably actually increases in value the more goods you have, because if you grow the overall production of what people are producing and stuff like that, but you don't actually grow the money supply, then the dollars increase in their relative value to what they can buy. Um, so yeah, so as we can see from the things that are happening right now, there has been inflation, there has been a lot of stuff that's going on, but it's looking a lot like, a lot of times you have these really big spikes like this right before the massive crash, and the massive crash usually happens all at once, because everyone kind of realizes all at once that, hey, I have a bill due or some debts or whatever that I need to pay, so I need to sell this asset so I can go pay that, and then all of a sudden everyone starts moving into dollars, because people start, selling their assets to be able to cover their debts. Once that starts happening in enough concentrated areas that it causes like a crash, then that spirals out of control. I know they do things like freezing markets and stuff like that, but it doesn't change the fact that if everyone has to move out of it just because they simply need to pay their debts, it doesn't fix any of those underlying issues. The amount of debt that exists in the system has to get paid off. When it gets paid off, it sucks all of the money that it did, all that money that was created via the debt process is removed from the economy, and therefore will cause a deflationary effect. And the reason that we are seeing so much inflation is not only from the money printing that's been happening from Washington, but also the amount of debt that people have been taking on in recent times, just because of the various economic hardships. People have been working less and stuff like that, and they've needed to take out loans to kind of get through. There's been a housing craze for whatever reason, causing massive spikes in house prices, and also an increase in the overall amount of loan length, so that people can take on larger amounts of debt so they can keep the party going just one day longer. Because as Keynes said, in the long run, we're all dead, and the elites, the people that run the system, don't want to be the ones that are dead when the whole system comes crashing down, because otherwise they will, in short order, find that that in the long run we're all dead ends up being true, but in a shorter time frame than they had initially anticipated. So that's kind of my little spiel and why I think we're gonna ultimately end up with deflation. But we'll kind of have to wait and see. And hopefully you guys found this interesting. I know it wasn't super coherent and stuff like that, but it's something I kind of want to talk on and get my thoughts out on, because there's been a lot of talk around this topic, and I kind of have a different perspective on it, so I thought it would be worth sharing. Hopefully you guys all found this interesting. If you did find it useful, like, share, subscribe, and I'm on YouTube, BitChute, and Podbean, so that's where you can find me if you are interested. Thank you guys all for listening, and have yourselves a good day. Goodbye.